Welcome. This is the Metropolitan Council council meeting this Wednesday, February 8th. It's nice to see so many people in our chambers. Welcome. We have a call to order, and first, approval of the agenda. And we don't need a vote, but unless anybody has any comments or questions, I will assume the agenda is approved, which takes us to the approval of the minutes from January 25th, 2023. Is there a motion and a second to approve the
I'll
minutes?
make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the minutes are approved. This is the point when we have an opportunity for public and interested persons to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. And I know there's an agenda item later on that may interest many of the people who have signed up. But since that item is on the agenda, that is not an eligible opportunity to speak at this meeting. Now, having said that, I know that you have very concerned about a action that's coming later in the meeting, as I understand it, under the safety plan review. I just want to say we've gotten written testimony, which we have handed to every council member at their place. We've also put it out on in the lobby. We also have had emails and testimony before the Transportation Committee. So I just want to assure everyone here that we have taken that input seriously, and we ensure that there is adequate access and conversation. But we do have a pretty strict bylaws and practice that any items before the public testimony would be items that are not on the agenda. So here's my question. Of those that have signed up, are there anyone who wants to speak on anything that is not on the agenda? All right. So to move on.
Mr. Chair, I think someone stood up.
Yeah.
I'm not signed up, but I have a very serious issue with Metro Transit that affects drivers and fast people.
Mr. Chair,
And is it, excuse me?
just, I think that we need them to speak at the microphone in order for people at home to hear.
Is it, would you would like a 3-minute opportunity to speak on an item that is not on the agenda?
Yes, I believe I would.
Okay, please come forward. Yes, to the microphone. If it's an issue that is not something that we're under consideration at this meeting.
Do I just stand or sit?
You can sit or stand at your pleasure.
Okay,
Please sit and make yourself comfortable and just say your name. And we have 3 minutes, and
Okay, and if someone
microphone's
can hold
yours.
their hand up at 30 seconds to go, that would help. At 2 minutes and 30, somebody can put their hand up so I know I got to wind down. But I think I can do it even quicker. Okay, let's start with my name. My name is Linda Konachek. I've been riding Metro Transit buses and then the light rail. I went on the maiden voyage, the train car behind the governor's car when he rode, when they opened up the light rail in St. Paul, the Green Line. So I've been riding since the early 80s. My concern is this. I ride right now in St. Paul a great deal, having lived at one place renting for about 15 years. We have buses that are completely filthy. If you look, the floors are filthy. The up where the dashboard is below the glass is filthy. It's all in the air system. I have studied with internationally known researchers from Canada's federal government and professors and NASA scientists from 2 countries, Canada and America. And this is a horrible thing for my health because I've been in auction due to a deadly moldy apartment in St. Paul that was the worst test in the history of the United States. And that almost killed me for a year. And that was through, I think, Metro Council. I got that apartment. It wasn't their fault, but we don't deal with mold still with housing, sadly. And anyway, my concern is all that filth in the air, and I don't know how you could get it without ripping the bus apart, even clean with inside of it. I have no idea. And when I ride in Minneapolis at times, some of the buses are sparkling, so someone is actually scrubbing. And then after 3 years of asking questions and asking customer service to please deal with our buses being dirty, please clean them. One driver said to me riding the bus one day, he said, we don't have people that are cleaning them. We don't seem to have people working that clean the east garage buses, from what I can tell. So anyway, that's a huge concern to me, and it really affects air quality and health, and especially during COVID, that's been a nightmare. Air quality number 2, having them push the emergency exits in the ceiling up top, that lets freezing cold air in the winter and rain dripping in the summer, and all it does is suck diesel in because there's a vacuum created when you move a hollow object through air, which acts more like a liquid than air does. It pulls the diesel from the roof. We have a ultra-low sulfur diesel, thanks to Brian Lamb, but it still sucks the diesel exhaust in through the opening because of a vacuum created, and that's horrible during COVID and other things. They did it because of COVID, and there's no science, I believe, saying that that's going to help do anything about COVID or anything else. So anyway, those are 2 concerns, but the filthy bus is so sad and upsetting to me because drivers breathe that all day long. I can barely breathe. I'm choking and coughing, having oxygen tanks because almost dying from cigarette smoke the apartment after the deadly moldy apartment for a year. So it's been and then I was 10 years homeless after I got sick from the smoking apartment. It came in secondhand. But that's about all, I think that's about mainly when I cover safety that way, because I am concerned. It makes it harder and harder for me to ride, and I feel embarrassed choking and coughing during COVID. It's been just, I'll do like this, and try to cough lightly. People get kind of mad anyway, like when it first started, 2020. All right, but thank you so kindly, and I pray that maybe what you do is rotate the buses from here to there, since you have cleaners over there, and rotate the buses around, and then maybe it'll solve it for the time being. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there, Councilmember Fedson?
Thank you, Chair. Can you let us know how many people did sign up to testify?
7.
Okay, and so I guess 7 people at around 3 minutes each. We don't have folks show up to our meetings like this very often. And I don't know if folks showed up knowing that our general sort of operating procedure is that we don't have folks participate in a public hearing on items that are on the agenda. But I think for the most part, a lot of these folks are people who work for Metropolitan Council, and we should give them the opportunity to be heard tonight.
Well. Deeply appreciate that point of view and share the tremendous respect you have for our Met Council employees and the work that they do. It is a bylaws, and it's a strict practice that if we deviate, we would have to go through a bylaws change, which we don't have time to do. So I recognize that, also knowing that we had a transportation committee and other great opportunities. I'm not saying that that wouldn't be nice. It's not an issue of time. It is an issue of policy and practice, but I appreciate your point of view.
So I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So in order for people to be heard tonight, then am I wrong that if this item were moved from the agenda to the next meeting, then they could be heard?
There's, it is on the agenda for action, this item, today. There, as I understand, we can hear a timeliness to the action.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Oh, is there someone?
I think also I share with Councilmember Chris, point of view. Is it possible to ask the legal counsel if there's a way to let them speak?
I've actually checked with counsel prior to the meeting just to ensure,
Okay.
and I've been confirmed to me by our counsel that this is a matter of bylaws and practice. So you can tell me if I'm wrong.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the bylaws and the rules that we have in place. My former position as a mayor and council member, we would have this similar circumstance where if an item was coming before the planning commission, we took all that public testimony there. Then it would come to the council. We wouldn't allow a repeat of everything because that would be the way where people would testify and get that out. However, we did find that between that moment at a planning commission meeting and when the full council would hear it, there might be new information that was coming forward. So we, at least in our setting, would allow for new information to come forward that the council hadn't already received. I'm just putting that out there because I'm uncomfortable with the fact that this is an important item for sure, and we have some folks that want to say something about it. The only thing that I would ask is that when we do take the item up as a council, I have some questions of my own that I don't think we can answer, but I think some of them might be able to answer. And I'm just wondering, there wouldn't be anything preventing us from asking questions of ATU leadership or others if we had them based on information we've received since transportation.
I'll take that with council.
Well, Chair, I think the conduct of the meeting is within your purview, and it seems like another way to get around the bylaws, which would not allow that kind of testimony to have non-council employees presenting at your meeting, so.
Be a way to get around bylaws, yeah. Well,
And
I
Mr.
think we'll
Chair,
have.
just a point of clarification. I'm not intending to skirt bylaws, but I'm always trying to bring my best self forward with information that I have and questions that I need answered, and you all know I ask my questions, and you all do too, but this is an important item. It's on safety, and it involves the safety not only of our customers and clients, but of our workers at Met Council too. So I just don't want to be held back by our own bylaws if council members are just trying to get information as they're preparing to vote. And my intentions are perfectly good, and I've had some conversations already ahead of this meeting about that.
I appreciate your point of view, and I think when we get to this action, we will hear what their situation is, and we'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss it among ourselves.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Chair.
if there's the need for new information, we will certainly seek new information. Having heard that, on to the consent agenda. We have a couple of items. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, consent business items?
Move to approve?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. There are no reports of the Community Development Committee, none on the Environment Committee, no reports from the Management Committee. There is the report from the Transportation Committee. And that, I think, is the item that we have been discussing. So, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2023-15 is to adopt the bus and rail agency safety plans as required by federal regulation. The Metropolitan Council last approved the agency safety plans in July 2022 as part of the required annual update. The agency safety plans are coming back before you now because federal rules required that the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee approve the plan by December 31st, 2022, which triggers the need for the council to approve the plan again. The Joint Labor Management Safety Committee is a new committee required by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The federal rules require that formation of a Joint Labor Management Safety Committee by July 31st, 2022, and that for Safety Committee to approve the plans by December 31st, 2022. Metro Transit and ATU formed the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee on July 31st, 2022, as required by law. At the committee's November 4th, 2022 meeting, they agreed to review and provide comments on the agency's safety plan by November 30th. These plans were updated based on the feedback received by the agreed-upon November 30th deadline, as there were a few technical changes recommended by a management representative and did not substantially change the plans from what we adopted in July 2022. As you heard, this Joint Labor Management Committee has gotten off to a bit of a rocky start. Throughout 2022, the Metro Transit Safety Director repeatedly reached out to ATU to form the committee and to ensure the committee approved the safety plans by the legally required deadline of December 31st. Labor members of the Joint Committee did not provide feedback by the November 30th deadline that the committee members agreed to at their November 4th meeting. Metro Transit documented the numerous steps they took to secure the safety plan approval by the Joint Committee, and they confirmed with FTA that these actions met the requirements under the law. The council is being asked to approve these today in line with the federal deadline. But it's important to know, very, very important to know, that these are living documents. As was discussed at the Transportation Committee, these plans must be updated at least annually. And the reality is our goal and hope is that this is a continually updated document done in collaboration between Metro Transit and ATU. So there will be additional opportunities to update this plan based off of the Safety Committee's feedback. But we must approve these plans at this point to make sure we remain compliant with federal rules. This is important to ensure we are not at risk of jeopardizing federal funding. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council adopt Revision 4 of the Bus Transportation Agency Safety Plan and the Light Rail Transportation Agency Safety Plan for Metro Transit as required by 41 CFR Part 673.
Thank you. Could I have a second?
Second.
All right, so we'll open it up for discussion. First, are there any questions for Councilmember Barber? Councilmember Lilly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the report, Councilmember Barber. And I just had a question looking at the committee report that says motion carried, but if I remember, it was not a unanimous vote, correct?
Correct.
Could you please just break down the vote for me?
I believe it was 4 in favor, 2 against.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Barber, for that report. So going forward, the Safety Committee will continue to operate, or there will be, you said there will be opportunity for more input, and it's a living document. Can you just outline what that process will be going forward, should this pass today?
Correct. So I believe the next meeting is on Friday. Is that correct? I believe. And so the group has come together. And also one of the requests at Transportation Committee was we wanted to hear back about progress and how things were going. And I have offered to union leadership because this is a joint effort between Metro Transit and ATU, that when they come back to report, that they have a seat at the table as well, so we can hear both from Metro Transit and from ATU at that time to hear how it's going, because we want this to be comprehensive. We want this to be successful. We know it's very important. We know it's the most important thing right now. And so I think the Transportation Committee really wants that input on an ongoing basis, and both from ATU and from Metro Transit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
And then, because we received, at least I did, I'm assuming everybody did. I know I was told ATU representatives were reaching out to everybody. Is all that folded then into at least tonight's meeting, so that anything that they've provided us is considered public testimony and can be incorporated into our decision tonight? And the reason, I'm seeing nods, so I'll take that as a
Yes,
yes.
I think all the written material that's been provided, including what was emailed previously, it will be part of the public record.
Okay, good. And I just want to be sure that we aren't approving something tonight, and then there will be a gap in time. That's not probably the right word. There will continue to be process, but from what I understand, there are serious concerns that ATU workers, our frontline workers, are trying to bring forward. And I understand, too, that the process got off to a rocky start. And I understand that there's a federal deadline. I understand the Met Council transit manager leadership spoke to the feds to make sure that we don't lose our spot for funding. That's important that we stay on track. But I also want to let everybody know, my colleagues know, that public safety on our transit facilities, trains, buses, platforms, properties is a top concern for us. We all know this. It's in the news every day. I'm learning every day of some of the heinous things that are taking. Mr. Chair, just a point of order for everybody here tonight. I appreciate that, but if you don't applause, it's actually better for our conversation, because it's really not allowed in Robert's Rules of Orders, but appreciate where you're coming from. I think what's really important, though, is that everything that they're trying to bring to us, whether it got off to a rocky start or not, whether there's history on both sides between management and ATU, and speaking with ATU representatives today, and of course the great work Transportation Committee is trying to do, the folks in our Transportation Department, but I think we need to all understand what's at stake here, and that is that we need to keep our frontline workers safe. We need to provide them an environment where they can thrive and do their best work. because that impacts the experience that our customers and our clients are having, which impacts the people and institutions that we're trying to serve, which impacts people's success, which impacts our economy, and which impacts our region's reputation. And that probably is least of all because safety is my biggest concern with all of this. So in looking at this process, it feels like there's some pent-up demand, obviously, of people that are trying to give input into an important safety plan that we've adopted, and thank you to Councilmember Chambliss for leading the effort and getting all of that heavy lifting done so that we have today the ability to move forward with a plan. But I think there's much more work we can do because it's an iterative process. I actually asked today if I could go on a ride-along with operators. I went on a ride-along recently with a sergeant in our police department because I'm hearing about things. I don't take transit. I don't. And I live in part of the world where we are a suburban provider and I have a car. But I have the greatest respect for those operators, and I want to better understand what's taking place on those vehicles. So I hope to be doing that soon. But they know better than those of us who aren't in those positions what's going on, and they have insights every day into what's going on. And I just want to make sure that there's not history or prejudice or frustration or things that could become barriers and roadblocks to really putting together a stellar plan that serves everybody well, not in the future as we kind of continue with the process, but immediately. I want to hear what they're saying. I want the management's point of view and everything so that we've got the full spectrum. Riders have been sharing with us their concerns. Legislators are sharing their concerns. The MAC is sharing their concerns. Employers are sharing their concerns. So tonight we've got an important group of people here tonight that are working every day to do their very best in jobs that they should be very proud to carry out, and we're very grateful for their work. I don't want there to be a moment, though, where we miss an opportunity to just set aside whatever has caused angst in the last several months that would prevent what we need to hear being woven into this public safety plan. If I can't be assured of that, I don't know how I can continue to have confidence myself in what we're trying to do every day in service to the people of this region as it comes to public safety. And I say that with the best intentions.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. And if I can just piggyback on your thoughts just quickly, and then we'll hear from others. I'm regularly testifying before the Capitol to say, to observe that the safety, the conditions for our customers or employees is the highest priority for their operation. It has to be. And how we learn and continually evolve and create our plans requires input for those that are most closely associated with the experience. It is gratifying to know that this is a living process, that it should continue, and my understanding there's been a commitment, at least I've been told, from management, which I believe, to continue to amend and to gather that concerns and ensure that those concerns are seriously incorporated in whatever changes that will be done on an ongoing basis. I have a question really for Chair Barber. This is done at least once a year, but it doesn't, we're not waiting another year to make changes.
No, sir, we are not waiting another year. Like I said, I believe the next meeting, if I'm correct, is this Friday. And our goal is to continue to make sure we are getting both representatives from ATU and from Metro Transit to the table on a more routine basis. And one of the big requests, as I discussed earlier, was FM transportation, is we wanted to hear back. So we wanted to hear how the meetings were going. And that's why I have put it out to the union leadership that when we do this, that in front of the table, in front of the committee, is someone from Metro Transit that serves on the committee and someone from ATU that serves on that committee, because we want to hear that there's actual real progress going forward. And this can be updated many times this year. We have to submit it once a year annually, but it doesn't stop us from making changes along the way now.
So that, I appreciate knowing that, and I think that makes a big difference from the sense I get from our own council members wanting to ensure that that input is taken seriously and acted on. What I'm hearing too now is that the Transportation Committee will take some responsibility to ensure that management and our AT representatives and other stakeholders will be at the table to ensure that that input is open and considered.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also want to say that, I'm very disappointed we didn't get everybody to the table sooner. I would say that based on some conversations I had earlier today, it sounds like we've even made progress within the last day of having some good collaborative discussions to be able to lay out what this committee looks like, how are they going to work, how often they're going to meet. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I do think it's likely to take some time, which is why we do want them coming back to talk to Transportation Committee on a more frequent basis, so we're up to speed with the current state of things.
Okay, other questions? Councilmember Chambliss.
I think Councilmember Zarin was before.
Councilmember Zarin.
Thank you,
I'm
Chair.
only looking to the right. I'll look to the left.
Motion to table this item.
There's a motion to table this item, and by that, you wish to not have it on the agenda?
By that, I mean, we should revisit this item after the committee has had a chance to meet. They're meeting this Friday. Let's bump it 2 weeks. Let's let them meet.
Well, we have an actual motion which has been seconded, and so I
Mr.
guess,
Chair. Point
just a second.
of
I'm
order.
going to check my own counsel
Yeah.
here.
Point of
So
order
there
is
can be a
my-
motion to table in the middle of the motion.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
it's not debatable.
Is there a second?
Second.
All righty, then we'll have a vote on whether.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification.
Yes.
I just want, a motion to table under Robert's rules is almost to kill it unless you postpone to a date certain. I just want to make sure I understand what I'm voting on.
Councilmember Barber?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make clear that this is adoption of a plan that was due December 31st, 2022. And so it's something that has to really go through the council now, and we can start the revision of the next version as soon as we do this. But we really need to be able to adopt this current plan that we're working on that was submitted to FTA. FTA agreed that we had met the spirit of the law, encouraged us to continue to keep working. But it's really, it's too serious of an action to delay. I think not improving this tonight could really affect our federal funding if it's not improved. And so I actually encourage you to vote in favor of the original motion. I also encourage both ATU and Metro Transit leadership to really work together to make this something substantive. I think it's really important because public safety and safety of our operators is it's the most important thing right now when we talk about Metro Transit. We know it. I see a lot of rolling eyes. We know it, and we're trying to do things to improve things. This is not something that's meant to sit on the shelf. This is something where we want to get good feedback, good information, and understand what the real needs are and build it into something so that we can actually execute on. And we know the only way we do that is hearing the voices of people who are out driving the buses, driving the trains, doing the work. We know that. And so we hear you, and we know that. But this isn't meant to be the end of the story. This is the start of the story.
All right, Councilmember Chambliss?
I just want
Just point of order, Mr. Chair, we're in a non-debatable motion right now.
You're right, and this is just a sharing of information, but it sounds a lot like a debate, so that point well
Just point of
taken.
order.
Yeah.
Under this, we are not to debate the motion.
Right, and Mr. Chair, Councilmember Johnson has a good point that laying on the table is, in essence,
Killing it.
I don't think that's what you intended. I think if you were intending to postpone it to a time certain, then we should clarify that and make sure everyone understands that that's what the motion is.
All right, let's understand what their motion is. Councilmember Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. My motion is to revisit this at the next committee of the whole.
Okay. Committee of the Whole. All right. The motion is on the table, has been seconded. And just to clarify, this is a motion to table and have it discussed, not necessarily acted on in the next.
Not to table.
the
Mr. Chair? Sorry, Ann.
Go ahead.
No, Mr. Chair, I believe it's no longer a motion to table, but to just move this item to a future date, as mentioned, which then, and that would have to be okay with the seconder because it's substantive under Robert's rules, and then I believe that motion would be debatable. Sorry, I've done it 20 years. Sometimes it
Thank
comes
you.
back and sometimes it
Thank you,
doesn't.
former mayor and
But it's
council
important
members.
because
Yes,
if
right.
people aren't heard properly under Robert's rules, it becomes a problem for the outcome of how we vote.
Yeah.
So that's why, I'm not trying to be
That's helpful.
problematic here, and I look at Ann because she's my soulmate in this stuff.
Yes, Councilmember Johnson is correct. This is now a motion to postpone to a date certain of the next cow. We would need a second for that motion, and then it is debatable, and then we will vote on that motion if it's seconded.
Is there a second?
Second.
All righty, we can debate this. Councilmember Chambers was just starting to speak, so.
Thank you. You know, first of all, public safety, as has been stated many times today and prior, is very crucial for all of our customers, our employees included, our Metro Transit police staff, our bus riders, the people that get on and use light rail and buses. I am a person who has taken the light rail personally several times and seen some of the issues that we have been working very diligently to resolve on our public vehicles. But I also want to say that as a person who has been involved in community engagement for a number of years, it's very important that we have the voice of the people who are impacted. To move something forward with one or two people participating and approving is an issue. And so I don't believe we should go forward if we have considered something approved and there's only one or two people from an entity, which as we can see is quite large, not being involved. So that is a huge concern, I think, for many of the council members here. And I think we need to work on a proper resolution, which I think is the reason, at least part of the reason why the motion amendment came forward. Other than that, I would also say that I appreciate our transportation chair for clarifying what our requirements are, because I have received emails saying that the FTA said that we did not have to meet the deadline. Well, that sounds contradictory if they've given us a deadline and then later tell us that we don't have to meet it. My biggest concern is making sure that we have the proper engagement of the group that is supposed to be involved in making approvals.
Councilmember Barber, then Johnson, then Lilligren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to clarify a couple of things. So yes, there was a deadline. There was a deadline both for the formation of the committee and also for the submission of this plan. And yes, it could have an impact on our federal funds if we didn't meet those deadlines. And pardon me. Also, if we do postpone this vote, the reality is we're not going to be voting on amended or revised plan. This is the plan that was submitted to FTA that was due December 31st, and the motion would still have to be to approve this plan. It doesn't mean that we can't talk about something else at another meeting, but that is what the action would actually be.
All right, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to that point, I think we can weave in a win-win here. So Councilmember Zarin has an amendment to postpone this item until our next council of the whole meeting. What we could do, if Councilmember Zarin would withdraw that motion, not saying you should, but what we could do is approve what we have tonight with an amendment to this motion to approve that would take this item then to the next COW meeting for the rest of us to kind of get up to speed on where we're at, and then invite a set number of representatives from ATU to just join us at that table to just lay a level set. This plan is set in place so we meet the federal requirements, and I think for this council, and we'll probably have some new council members coming on, we have an opportunity to sit with ATU representatives to just everybody sit down together, let's hold hands, and let's agree on how we're going to work together. I think that that could be a win-win, and I think it would show everybody's intent to bring our best selves forward so that we can move forward tonight, knowing that on our side of things, at least from the federal requirements, we're meeting their requirements, but also giving ATU the requirement that there is a path forward, that not just the committee, not just transportation, but the council of the whole is going to step up and meet with representatives from ATU, number 2 to be determined, so that we all feel good about how we'll move forward, the cadence of how this will go forward, because it's a living document, and we'll get the input that we need, and we'll hear from the voices that we need to hear on the front lines. That would be my recommendation to the maker of the motion. If you don't go that direction, I eventually will.
All right, I know Councilmember Lilligren's been waiting, and
Thank you, Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead.
I just, as the original motion maker, just
Right.
wanted to respond. I think that's a great idea. I think obviously, as you mentioned, this is the conversation this is what we're getting questions about. So however we facilitate that discussion with, a combination of ATU and Metro Transit leadership and figure out, so we can ask those questions, and I think that's a great idea. I do think this needs to advance tonight for the reasons I stated, but I don't want that to be the end of the conversation.
so what I sense then, just to clarify, Councilmember Barber, is that you support this idea that Councilmember Johnson said, pass the plan, but set a time certain for the entire council to hear.
Correct.
From ATU. Yeah, okay, great, yep.
Just another note, I don't know that it would happen this week, but we also have a new police chief coming on. It might be a good time to align some of those conversations, so they gets very familiar with what we're talking about.
Yeah. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to Councilmember Johnson and Barber for, Councilmember Barber for supporting this alternate way forward, and Councilmember Johnson for coming up with it. And I really want to thank all the folks who are here tonight and the ATU members who have been reaching out to me and making their condition and their work conditions clearer to me. I do ride the bus, so I do see quite a bit of it myself. And to me, this became kind of confusing, and thank you, Councilmember Barber, for clarifying. We've already submitted this plan to the feds, right? And so this vote, I don't know, is a formality, and maybe I would look to Ms. Bloodhart to clarify if the governing body is required by the FTA to vote on a safety plan, or is this something that we're doing just to show that it has our stamp of approval?
Wow, I feel like I'm in Robert's Rules jail today.
Right.
Safety
There's a
plan
reason
jail.
they're called Robert's Rules.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Lilligren, I see Deb raising her hand, and I know that our safety person is here tonight. I believe it is a federal requirement to
That
submit
the
this
governing-
plan, but I would say we might want to hear from Metro
Welcome, thank-
Transit safety person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
council members. I'm Andrew Brody, Director of Rail and Bus Safety for Metro Transit. And how it works is, so we have two agency safety plans, one for light rail, one for bus, as described in the business item. We have to, when we review it, and then it goes to the Joint Labor Safety Management Committee. They review it, approve it, and then it moves on to our, the light rail one actually gets approved through our State Safety Oversight Office. He has to approve it, and then I have to approve it as the Chief Safety Officer of Metro Transit, and then the General Manager of Metro Transit has to approve it as well. So it goes through multiple approvals, and then once all that is kind of packaged up and everybody's in agreement, it comes to the Transportation Committee. They approve it, and then it comes to you all. So that's kind of how it's been, and I guess I just wanted to clear one item up. So the FTA doesn't require us to submit our actual plan to them. What we do, or actually what the general manager does as the CEO, he or she has to check a box saying that we have a compliant agency safety plan. And then when they come for our triennial audit, the FTA comes for our triennial audit, most of the time a contractor, they'll look at our history and to ensure that it was properly updated. So that, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And just a question, what I didn't hear was whether or not this governing body voting on this safety plan is an actual federal requirement from the FDA? It is.
It is, yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks. And
Councilmember Barber?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make sure and reiterate with council members that because of some of the concerns that we were not sure we were getting everyone to the table in time, we proactively met with FTA to ask, have we met the requirements for this? And we were told that we did.
Yeah, okay, good. Councilmember Musa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it would be a mistake to approve it tonight until we hear from the workers. And this huge turnout really proves an interest from the workers decide to tell their story, their side of the story. And I think that's why I support Councilmember Desir's, motion that we, postpone this for 2 weeks until we hear from them. That's my input. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Barber?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, let me state again, nothing will change. We'll still have to approve this plan that was submitted on December 31st, 2022.
But it could be amended.
We have to start working on the next version. So that's where if we're going to focus our efforts, that's where you should focus efforts.
Mr. Chair, I just have, I know Councilmember Pacheco's waiting, but I just want to make sure I'm clear what our pathway forward is here, and I'm not clear. And so what I heard from staff is that the general manager, as the CEO, was required to check a box saying that we had a plan and that the plan itself isn't submitted to the feds. And so there's just a little fact discrepancy there that I want to be clear on, because if it's a box that's checked, I feel like we do have a lot more leeway and liberty to amend a plan going forward, and it's a living document, as we've all been saying. So that just seems a little inconsistent, Councilmember Barber, so if you can help me understand if this plan word for word has been submitted, or it's just to acknowledge that we have a plan.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So word for word, it hasn't been submitted, but we've met that we had the committee formed and had a plan that needed to be in place by the end of the year, and we've relayed that information to FTA. Where it gets audited is in the triennial audit, and so to say even it would never get looked at, and that they would check to make sure we met those requirements or not. But like I said, it does mean we can continue and start to change and look at the new version of that. And if we're going to focus efforts that will actually result in different things, that's what we should do.
And part of the issue, Councilmember Barber, if I got it right, is currently there is no plan.
Really?
Through the committee process. Until it's approved, until it's.
I never heard that. There's a plan.
Can you repeat? We didn't hear what you said over here on this side.
That plan, once adopted, is open to revision.
Right.
But currently, you can't check that box because there has not been the committee actions and ultimate council approval.
Yes.
Which is why you are advocating for a vote tonight.
Correct.
Okay, get that in our heads. All right, Councilmember Pacheco.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I actually voted against this at the committee level because I just wasn't quite sure how this process even played out. I mean, because I understand the importance of meeting all requirements and the federal requirements that's necessary. And I think staff did a good job of monitoring and doing everything that they need to do to get it ready for this meeting. But when you have half the equation not participating, it made it very difficult with labor not participating. And I thought even when the presentation said one of the federals look at is the labor and management moving it forward, not just management. And so I just, and so I asked, what is the process? Do we have 2 more weeks? Or do we have, and it wasn't real clear to me then, and I think it's a lot more clear to me now of what the process could be. But so I believe we need everybody at the table, and if we lose 2 weeks, and I'm not sure the federals would, come down on us, or we'd lose that much, and that wasn't clear to me. What is the penalty? I mean, is there not a recess or a time that we could extend, or even request an extension? That was not clear. I think the only thing that's clear to me is that we're all committed to safety. We've always been, and and all of us are even more heightened now. And having the folks on the ground saying that they want something added to it is important. I think we also believe that, and also, I'm here to say again that I support the staff in the work that they're doing. They work very hard to make sure we do meet all these requirements that are necessary to operate a safe and ongoing operation. So I voted against it then, and I probably will again today. I just really believe we need that other half of that equation for us to move it forward.
All right, Councilmember Johnson.
Just point of clarification, so the motion on the table is to postpone this item till the next meeting of the COW. So when you say that you'll vote for or against it, just so everybody knows what the motion is. Just for clarification.
And then we have what I called the Johnson idea kind of floating.
That's just sitting there,
But it's just sitting
nothing
there.
official.
I understand.
I'm just
that.
waiting to see how the vote goes down.
Yeah, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's at risk is some of our federal funding, and that's if we don't do some of these things. And then the other piece of it is I really want to reiterate that our staff did reach out and did try many times to engage, to get this going, to be a partnership. I don't want to rehash that because I think we're embarking on a different conversation now. It sounds like conversations this week have gone pretty well. But, it wasn't for a lack of trying. We do know we need to work together better going forward. And that's why some of these other solutions that we're talking about of how we engage even at the committee level regarding some of this work is so critical. But I do want to make sure that, our staff really tried.
Okay. Councilmember Fretzen.
Thank you, Chair. Given that we're already past the deadline, I just find it hard to believe that the FTA would withhold federal funds if this waited for 2 more weeks. So I'm going to be supporting Councilmember Zarin's motion, and the last thing I would do is vote if I actually believed it would impact federal funding. But my observation is this organization has a good working relationship and partnership with the FTA. And if they indicated that they were flexible to get us to February 8th, I can't imagine they wouldn't be in a position to give us a couple more weeks to hear from our employees.
Or potentially 1 more week. Councilmember Johnson.
Mr. Chair, to that point, so the next meeting, let's so we know what the date is. The next meeting of the whole is what date for the council? When would that be? We've got a motion to do that, so what would the date be? So that we all know, are we here? Is it this group that's gonna be here? We're in the midst of, we've got some open seats right now. I just wanna make sure that there could be a quorum.
The next committee of the whole meeting is on February 15th, which is a week from today.
And Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yeah.
And with all due respect to the maker of the motion and those supporters for it, is that enough time? Because if the goal is to adopt a safety plan, there would need to be a way to incorporate some of that input into a safety plan. And I don't see that we can get to an adoption of a revised safety plan in a week. So I just want to know, is it to take additional input and then would there be a time certain after that a plan would have to be approved or accepted by the council? I'm not trying to throw a wrench in it, but everything matters in the details when you move forward. We don't want to get ourselves tripped up in a process where, shoot, our intentions were good, but we timed ourselves out.
Yeah, I have the same concern, and that's why I'm kind of thinking about what Councilmember Johnson had suggested, that we approve the current plan with a commitment to march forward immediately on the next version and revision. I think a week is, to do that, is pretty ambitious. Yeah. Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious here, just so I understand, we don't generally take action and vote on things at a COW either. So are we looking at getting all of this resolved within 1 week and taking a vote in 1 week? Or are we, given the different issues that have come up, and again, our commitment to safety for everyone, absolutely top of mind for everything, for everyone, that concerns me. And then I don't see how a week could possibly be enough time to address the issues that we currently have, and I can see this. I think that voting on it tonight gives us a place to start. It just gives us the starting point. Okay, here we are, we've got this, now let's move forward. We can meet in a week and talk, but not to vote on something, I don't think. But it opens up the door on issues to, if there isn't a resolution, if we have issues that continue to go forward, we could literally go months, and we've already submitted this and said we have a plan. So it seems to me that the path forward is to approve this tonight and then immediately start the meetings. We've got, as Councilmember Barber said, we already have a meeting set up for Friday, and we continue to do that. We schedule them, we get regular updates, but I think it is way too critical to let it not move forward at this point tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Cummings. We really need to, what our role is, we need to certify we have the plan, and then it's completed by 12/31 of 2022. And not having it adopted at this juncture means we haven't fulfilled our requirement under law. I want everyone to be clear, that is what we've said we did and what we're doing. That, again, doesn't preclude us from doing something different as we work towards whatever we submit in 2023.
Thank you. Councilmember Musset.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is why not hearing from the workers is a very problematic even tonight. This is why we need to find a way to ask the other side of the equation, the union and the workers, what's a reasonable time frame to postpone this until we figure it out. And I don't know, here legally we have some challenges, but that's why really hearing from the other side will help us guide so we can make a collective decision instead of ending up in the same position again.
And again, if I'm getting the sense of the proposal is to approve what we have with a commitment to get that input with enough deliberation and time to ensure that it really is there and not rushed arbitrarily. Councilmember Chambers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, when we met as a Transportation Committee, that was what our recommendation was, with the understanding that we would meet with the union folks as well as get reports back. And it looks like we've even added to those requirements today in terms of making sure that we have the proper engagement for the entire council with the union. So I'm in favor of going ahead and adopting a safety plan so that we know and we can say for sure that we do have a safety plan at the Metropolitan Council. It has been adopted, and we're going to continuously improve it and working with all of the organizations that are concerned. And the first and next organization that we would be working with is the ATU, having a meeting on this Friday, and then having a representative from the Met Council at that meeting, and also having a report back to the Transportation Committee and to the council.
Councilman Lilligren.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And it sounds like an alternate way going forward, maybe coming together. I would turn to Councilmember Johnson if she's going to make a substitute or motion. But to me, if we're going to approve this plan that's in front of us today, I think we need to set a time frame for when this work can get done, and that it comes back to us. I would not be comfortable supporting that if it were open-ended. If it's 2 council cycles or something realistic, I mean, I appreciate the communication that was left at our places today from ATU, and it's got 10 provisions on it. I mean, we're zeroing in on the focus areas for any future work. None of them seem like they would take years or months to resolve, and I think if all parties come to the table in the spirit and to resolve these it could happen fairly quickly, but I would be really uncomfortable just saying, approving this and saying we're gonna go back and engage those who are most impacted. I would say we could do it for X amount of time. If that's 2 council cycles or whatever, then I would be comfortable approving what's here. Otherwise, I don't think I can support it. Thank you.
Councilmember Johns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to be clear too, in the background section of our report, I mean, we approved this plan in July and we've been getting updates on it. Things are happening. It's not like we don't have a plan. We do have a plan. It's just that we need to certify it, or whatever the word is, to the federal government that we've got this committee that includes partnership with ATU and management so that it meets the federal rules or guidelines, whatever they are. So we have a plan. I don't want anybody to think tonight that we don't have a plan. I don't want it to be out in the media that we've been floating around without a safety plan, because we've been talking about it and meeting about it as a council. I also think that we are hearing loud and clear that for whatever reason, and I had a really frank conversation today with union leaders that we're calling a rocky start, that it didn't go as well as it could have by the deadline that the feds were asking us to get our meetings together and have input. What we have before us would have been great in December, but with that said, it didn't happen. I don't think we should move forward today on checking the box of the federal safety plan. We've got the plan, because we're hearing from the union that they have input that they want to give us. And that was the whole point of what the feds did, I believe, is to make sure that the union could be at the table with management. They were invited to the table. It didn't quite come together. The deadlines were happening. Met Council management, rightfully so, was making sure we weren't going to default or do something that would mess with our funding. Chair Barber's been doing heavy lifting on this and making sure things are moving forward. Certainly, we don't want to see funding in jeopardy. And with that said, tonight's the opportunity to get it right. I don't want there to be headlines that say we're moving forward and if there's any question for the people on the front lines that everything they need to say, at least at this moment in time, can't be said. So I'm prepared to support the motion as is, or we could amend this motion and require that it come back to either the 15th, which is pretty quick. We're not going to be able to make amendments to the plan. Look how long the plan took for us to get to where it is. We've got the opportunity to bring it back to COW on Council of the Whole. We call it the COW. Council of the Whole on March 1st, but that is right at the precipice of who knows who's going to be appointed once the governor makes his decision in March. So I'm not as nervous about moving forward without that box check. I don't like it. I wish things would have gone better before, but we have what we have tonight. I am nervous about, I want to approve it tonight, but I'm nervous about approving it tonight because then it goes off into the ethers where management and the union is trying to get it together again, and I don't want any more rocky starts. I want us all to be invested in this, and I want there to be accountability on all parts, and certainly for the Transportation Committee, that we get this right and we get this moving, and then we have a system going forward because we're going to continue to have safety improvements and input needed. So I'm okay pausing right now. I think the feds aren't going to be too upset with us, but we have to make sure that we come to an agreement on how the Safety Committee is going to operate, on how input is going to be heard. I will say that in my conversations today, it would have been great if ATU would have brought together, the number of items enumerated, and here are where the concerns are. We have that tonight, I believe, a good start of that, because that's where the rubber hits the road when it comes to their input. So I can go either way, but it has to involve a process by which ATU gets another shot at being more fully present in this committee process. So I'm with other council members that I can support the motion on the table, and if that fails, I'm prepared to make another motion behind it to at least ensure that ATU feels more secure about another shot at full participation in this committee.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. Again, if this is delayed, we're voting on the same thing we have now, and then we'll have to take actions to go forward. It is what's on the record, and that is what will happen. My one, to Councilmember Lilligren, I agree that we need to have ongoing dialogue. I don't want to set a date to be finished. I want to set a date to when we get reports back, because I think this is something that gets continually updated. I think things are going to change over time. What we think is a concern today may not be the biggest concern in 2 months. So I think if we just say, yeah, we want it done in 2 cycles, I think we want the first report back, or something like that, is the way I would take that, where we have this as a continually updated document until it's due the next time, right? And that's how I would view that process.
Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you. I hope that there are lessons learned. I'm sure there are lots of lessons learned about this whole thing, but I think one of the frustrations for me is that all of this is coming up right now, and I have confidence in our staff that there were many, many opportunities, efforts, meetings called to bring the ATU to the table and have a conversation that would bring up these issues that would be discussed at the time, not at the time the vote is being taken. So that is a frustration to me, and I hope that going forward, again, I hope that we are clear that we need to be partners in these efforts. We need the ATU at the table with management. We need to have these discussions ahead of time so that they can reflect the values that we all bring and the interests that we all have in this. But and I know that that clearly there was a rocky start to this, but I think we need to respect the process. And I think the Met Council, having said, checking with the FTA and saying, this is what we've done, this is our documentation, we asked for this, this is where we are, and that was sufficient. We have to continue to move things forward. We can't just let things roll on and then wait till a vote and wind up where we are. So I guess my hope is that going forward, we can have more of a partnership and that we can have these discussions earlier. But I think we've been working on this for months and looking for more input for months. And I would hope that, again, this can be the starting point for further discussion and updating. I agree with Councilmember Barber. These things are going to change as time. We've seen how much our world has changed. We need to be regularly meeting and addressing the concerns and hearing from our frontline people as well as those who are using transit and continuing to modify this plan. But if we don't have a starting point, there's nothing even to start with. So I would like to continue to move this forward.
It's kind of come to my attention, and I just want to confirm this with Councilmember Barber and staff. This action on the agenda is to ratify, confirm a plan that was in place on December 31st, 2022, which is what it was required for the compliance to meet the deadline. So it's not as of February 8th, today. It is really an action that is required as part of our process. And to your concern about we don't think feds would mind, we have before the Federal Transit Administration a number of actions that we hope that they will make. One is the Gold Line full funding agreement. There's a number of large commitments we're looking to the FTA for. Unless we are in compliance with our safety programs, that is threatened, just to make it real. So I think that the sense of this council to include the input, to ensure that there's reporting on a regular basis, we could be doing that. But I would not think this council would want to sacrifice a large capital project because we haven't had the right compliance and the right deadlines met. And that is just kind of the reality of a federal process. But how can we do this and ensure that we're having input, and ensuring that there's people at the table, ensuring that this is not just pushed off into the ether, to ensure that we're actually getting safety not just as a first priority, but central with those that are most informed, those who are in the train and on the bus. And I think that's the sense that we're all trying to find a way to do. And I think in terms of reporting schedules, I think a motion might say we'll have a monthly, sorry, not weekly, but maybe a monthly, where is the process to keep it in front of this council to ensure that we're following in a timely way. Because I don't think this happens in weeks, but it does happen in months. And the issue about our relationship with the FTA and being in compliance is a serious one. I know the staff works really hard to ensure that we have that in place. Councilmember Fredson, now that I've lectured you, no, I haven't lectured you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So based on the staff testimony, I sort of, it sounds to me like when that triennial audit happens, that box needs to be checked. And so do we have a timeline for the triennial audit, right? Like if you were saying to me, this triennial audit's happening in the next couple weeks, that would impact, my vote tonight, but
my understanding of audits, they go back and they actually make sure that what you have said you've done, you really did. So we are going to be saying, if I get this right, that we were in compliance on December 31st. We could not make that representation now. An audit goes back to make sure that what you have said, that box that you checked, truly backed up with an actual.
And just to follow, but I'm also under the understanding that there was a conversation had with the FTA that signaled that we had some additional flexibility.
Mr. Chair,
Councilmember Barber.
not necessarily with timing, but we had flexibility that they felt that our outreach to engage with the union was adequate because we attempted, as I said, a great deal, many times, to try and get that discussion going. And so FTA agreed that we had met the spirit of the law. And when you talk about the triennial audit, yes, it is a look back from 3 years. And right now, the project that's in the FTA office is Gold Line. Next time, it could be Riverview in 3 years when they come look at this. So when you're thinking about your decision now, even though you might not be on council, this could have an impact to something like that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Councilmember Johnson.
Well, I'm just going to ask the, what is it, $60 million question? I mean, is anybody from ATU, would anybody be open to hearing a representative from ATU talk about some of these timelines, our intentions to work with them on what they may be thinking, on what we're talking about tonight, because this certainly wasn't talked about in transportation. We're trying to come up with a partnership here is what I see, where people feel good about their roles, they're committed to their roles on the timelines that are set forward, so we don't have any more rocky moments. And I mean, it's not that it's ATU's decision, it's our decision, but what they're trying to show tonight is they have serious concerns, or at least want to bring some serious and thoughtful input onto the safety plan that we have in place, that we need to be in compliance with the federal government. And they want to, I want to know, you all want to know that there's a process by which this input's going to be submitted, ground through, work done, and intervals brought back, and the plan in another iteration will be updated and improved. That's the piece I don't know about, and that's whatever we do, I'd like it to come to a council of the whole to just better understand the path forward, right?
So what I'm hearing from you just now in that comment is you would want to support Councilmember Zarin's motion to put this forward a week. It's the same issue we're facing now.
No, that's not what I'm, Mr. Chair, for clarifying, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just trying to even understand if the union would even want that. I don't even know if they're ready with all of this to come up with something in a week. I think, and that's what I want to know, I think from my conversations with union representatives is they just want to be sure and have the time that through the process we've had so far, they're not saying that the safety plan that will be box checking for the feds is okay with them. They're telling us they're not okay with it. But we need to assure them that we're going to get with whatever their concerns are, whether we agree with everything or not, because it's give and take and fully vetting it all. But I think that's the piece for me, is that we tonight make sure that we get with ATA to a place where they're not saying, hey, that plan you're going to box check, we don't agree with it. That's what I've heard them say. That's what concerns me.
All right, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as sort of the reporting structure, I think it would be good, as we said, we've already talked that we're going to have representatives from the Safety Committee come talk to Transportation Committee on a fairly frequent basis. I do think we should have an overall Committee of the Whole discussion in general. Like I said, there's good timing, I think, with all the conversation around safety on the transit system in general. But I would also offer that during committee reports or council member reports at full council meetings, I'm happy to report back in the sort of interim before everything gets before the full council, so there's some visibility to everybody.
Councilmember Johnson.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would just say whatever we end up voting on here tonight, we do have a motion on the table. It's been seconded, there's support.
Yeah.
But I think that at any given time, whether we approve or adopt or ratify this plan tonight, we've heard it's a living document. If the motion fails, or if we don't come up with an alternate route for this in the near future, I think there needs to be recognition that this is not telling anybody that, and boy, was there unanimity around this plan that we had in place in December 31st. That's not happening. And I don't want there to be any kind of a message conveyed to the feds or anybody else. It got a slow start. We're finally getting the information that we need to get to weave into the plan and reflect. So by adopting or ratifying or whatever we're doing tonight with the plan, I just think it's important in the what we're doing part and what we mean by our votes. And that's why I would just like this at some point to get to a council of the whole so we can, expel what we're going through today and not have to go through this again and get solid commitments from everybody. I love hearing from ATU reps, but it shouldn't be under these conditions. This is not good for anybody because this is a big deal and we need to figure it out. So, Mr. Chair, depending on what happens with the motion, I'm trying to find some middle ground here where we get what ATU needs out of this because it's important and it's right, and yet we get what we need to be doing here as the MPO, to the feds so that we don't mess with anything else as far as funding. But there's a big trust moment here, I think, that we have both between management and ATU. This is a big moment where we can really make strides if we do this right.
Councilmember Cummings.
My final word, thank you. The plan is to vote on a plan that was in existence on 12/31/22, correct?
Correct.
All right. I just think we're sort of kind of drifting off of that I just want to remind that that's actually where we are. That's what this vote is on.
And there's been an expression of interest from council members, and I think representations from staff, that this dialogue is going to continue and open to how to revise this plan to ensure that it incorporates the concerns of those that are in this room.
Chair.
Councilmember Chambers.
So I would like, we've had some pretty robust conversation about the issues, and I think we understand what the concerns are regarding the engagement and how we intend to address that and make sure that we have the ATU involved and have report backs for their meeting this coming Friday. And we have an intention by this council to continue to engage and make sure that this plan moves forward. If we need to make changes or adoptions, we can do that at any time. So I would, Chair, I would like to ask Councilmember Zarin if he is okay with our plan to adopt this safety plan today, and that the council will, in good faith, communicate with ATU, and those conversations will happen through the Transportation Committee, through the Committee of the Whole, and with representation from ATU.
Councilmember Zarin.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion. I would appreciate a vote on it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we have 11 council members here tonight. I just want to be clear, when a vote is taken, it would take 6 to pass on a simple majority. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what's on the table is Councilmember Zarin, and you,
No, I'm sorry, it would be 7, Chair.
7.
7
Oh, 1,
for
2,
majority.
3, 4,
Okay.
11.
Charlie.
Oh, 12, sorry.
All right, so Councilmember Zarin.
Thank you, Chair. I request a roll call vote as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd offer a substitute amendment.
Counselor?
And it is,
It's an amendment to the amendment.
Oh, you are proposing an amendment to
Yeah.
the amendment? Yes.
So, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, with all due respect, certainly to Councilmember Zarin, I would move that we table this item until, postpone this item until, Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my amendment to the amendment.
Okay. All right. All right, so what's on the floor now is Councilmember Zarin's motion to postpone this action for a week to a council of the whole meeting. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And there's been conversations about we have, well, we'll just leave it at that.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just because I'm up, this is where I got hung up. Is everybody in this group going to be available on the 15th? Because if we don't have a number of us here, that's a problem, and it's a serious item. That's why all of our items are serious at the council, but sometimes when we really know we need bodies to show up, we ask people, are you going to make it, right? I think it's important that if we move this item, everybody get there if you can, because it's just that serious.
Okay. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Just a clarification. So we approved a plan in July 2022, and then this plan went forward in December. Would it come back in July of 2023, understanding it's a living document and all that, or would it come back in December 2023?
Mr. Chair, I can, it's required in December of 22, or 2023, to come back, just the process we're doing now, where it would go through all these committees and certifications and all of that, and then come to us likely in January of 2023. It doesn't mean that we have to wait to approve a different version. And I do think we want to give it enough time that I think if we rush something, if we do something in a week, I mean, we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, it's not going to be something that's useful and beneficial and helpful. We want to have something constructive. So we can ask that, okay, like last year we did it in July and December. Those were, both the July and December dates were specific dates that were in the law and that we had to meet. And now, like the current date in the law will be December 31st of 2023, kind of as an annual update. Doesn't mean we can't ask for something different.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Councilmember Johnson.
So I'll kind of go back where I was going before to Councilmember Zarin's motion. I would want a friendly amendment that just defines what we're going to be trying to accomplish on the 15th. For me, I really want to be assured, and it's been talked about, that we know who from ATU is going to be on the committee. We know who from management is going to be on the committee. We know how often they're going to be meeting. We know how often they're going to be going to transportation. We know how often they're going to be coming to a council of the whole or regular council meetings, so that we are all very assured, which I think is reasonable regardless of the moment tonight, because it's such an important thing that this council be briefed on a regular basis. So I would think that my intentions would be that if we could approve it in a week, but in that time, we will come up with a solidified plan with ATU and a calendar that meets the federal requirements, that meets our own interests that we've all been pouring our hearts out tonight about getting the input on a regular basis, where ATU shows up, management's showing up, whoever else needs to be on the committee, if it's a council member too, showing up, everybody be ready for the meetings, read your stuff, bring your paperwork that you need to show in advance with whatever it is you're trying to present and get. That's what we need, is by a week from now, show us the path forward. I would be ready to vote for the safety plan in a week, or I should say on February 15th, yeah, if I had that. We're talking about it tonight, but I know that at Met Council sometimes we say, oh, and we'll bring it back, and I really want to see what the plan looks. I want to see the calendaring of it.
If I get what you're saying, and this is a friendly suggestion, amendment, is to, in a week's time, have not a full safety plan, but at least a plan for the plan.
A framework
How's
for the plan.
A framework for how we're going to do the revisions to ensure that they really are done, not just lost in the ether, to quote somebody.
And I'm saying all of this without any input from ATU, but I think that what they're trying to do from the conversations I've heard one-on-one, from what they're showing us tonight, is they've got input and they want to be taken seriously. It's not that we're not taking them seriously, but they want to be heard. And I think that we need to know what that framework and plan calendared out to the best of our ability looks like in a week. And if we can get that so that there's certainty that they've got their seat at the table, they're going to be heard on a regular basis. I, for one, am going to get out on a bus or a train and just so we don't have any more rocky moments, or we don't have any 2 months from now, well, what happens? That, I think, needs to be kind of the contract. That's not the right word. I don't want to use the word contract. That needs to be the understanding tonight with what we're doing. Then if we have that, I can wait a week. I think it's important. If I don't have that, I have a hard time voting for this tonight too, even though I need to vote for it. I think we're trying to get this where in a week, everybody knows what the roles are. ATU's got their role. Management knows. We can purge from where we've come all of this stuff and a path forward. So for council members, Aaron, I'm not trying to sideline you. I'm with you. But in a week, I don't want to show up and have this discussion again and know then what. I want there to be like, alrighty, in a week's time, everybody's got their butts in chairs. We've agreed and we've promised, and we're going to do this going forward. We know when it'll hit transportation. We know when it'll come back to a council of the whole. It won't just maybe show up in a once in a while or quarterly safety plan update. That's not when we need to hear this. This is different because we've got a number of people that if they walk out tonight and feel unheard, we have a bigger problem.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Yes, I think those were very good points. That is a lot to accomplish within a week. I think we need to be realistic, and therefore, I would ask the council members to consider that before they take their vote. We understand what the risks are of not adopting. We understand that there are constraints in terms of time. We understand that if we adopt this plan, that we have already a meeting scheduled this Friday, and we've all agreed that we want to have the right representatives at the table from the Met Council, from ATU, et cetera. And I think we've got enough information to take a vote on what Mr. Zarin, Councilmember Zarin, has requested.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Leslie is trying to come up to address some of the next steps where we actually were planning to take things.
Welcome, Interim General Manager
Thank you.
Leslie Candace.
Chair, Councilmember Barber. So I think what we're here, well, a couple of things. So the plan you're being asked to approve is the plan that we completed on December 31st, 2022. So if it gets pushed back a week, that would still be the plan in front of you. We can't reopen that plan and still certify that we met the requirements. I think what we can do is document tonight's conversation as us bringing it to you. And if we come back next week, we will certainly work with ETU and use the meeting, hopefully this Friday, to try to provide that information. Again, just echoing what Councilmember Barber shared earlier, it is imperative that we have this board's approval of these plans, and we can say that you approved the plan that was completed by the December 31st deadline, which is in federal law, so the FTA can't give us flexibility on that. But certainly, if can continue to work to get the information. I think the bottom line is this board needs to ratify the plan that was completed in December. And once that happens, we can start working on the next plan where we can really make sure we have everyone at the table. I'll mention one other thing too. This plan is a completely separate document and requirement from the Council Safety and Security Action Plan. So I don't want there to be confusion that we've been considering those quarterly updates as somehow responsive to this federal law. But
Mr. Chair, and to that point, may I didn't mean to, I agree with you completely. I just don't want the public to think that we haven't had a plan in place, right? They're
correct.
Right.
Yes.
Right, that's helpful. All right, we have a vote, and we've been requested to be a roll call vote. So I think we're prepared to vote on the motion to push it, this discussion and the action 1 week to committee of the.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
To the maker of the motion, would you agree that in the week's time that we come up with some sort of calendared plan and committee structure that has to be in place a week from now when we bring this up again?
That's a friendly amendment.
I'm asking if the maker of the
Councilmember
motion would include that in his language.
My understanding is the questions need to be referred to the chair.
Well,
Chair, you recognized me. You gave me the eye contact. I appreciate that. Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. I have an motion. I would appreciate a vote on the motion.
Okay. That answers that question. Let's call a roll.
Councilmember Johnson?
Pass.
Nay.
Shamlis, nay.
Nay.
Barber?
Nay.
Cummings?
Nay.
Pacheco?
For both, yeah. Yay.
Yay. Lilligren?
Aye.
Muse?
Yes, aye.
Belly?
No.
Zarin? Or
Yes.
Lindstrom?
No.
Zarin, yes.
Yes.
Fredson?
Yes.
And Sterner?
Aye.
And you can come back to me.
Tell me what that vote is.
I'll vote yes as well.
Okay. If I'm getting this correctly, it's 6 yeses.
Constantly, did you say it required?
There's 12 of us.
It would take 7, but you didn't count Muse.
Oh,
There's 7 yeses.
He was a yes.
No, no,
okay.
I'm just double checking. All right, the votes are 7 to 5 in favor, so the motion carried. And we'll take this subject up in 1 week. Councilmember Stern?
Sure, yeah, point of information, since we're taking up in a week, could we allow the speakers to speak at this meeting? Since that we have the input from within the state?
I think it is still an agenda item, and we're in the middle of that agenda.
Okay, all right, thank you, Chair.
All right. All righty, well, then I think that we don't have that motion. The underlying motion goes away?
Right.
Yeah, all right.
Mr. Chair, actually the amendment became the main motion and we vote on it again under Roberts.
I'm sorry,
It was
what?
an amendment to the was it a substitute motion or an amendment to the motion?
It was a motion to postpone till next week that was
Okay.
approved, so.
Thank you.
So that motion is put forward 1 week.
Yep.
As I understand.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was confused on the motion. Is it possible to change my vote at this point?
If you're on the prevailing
My
side.
intent was to postpone it for 1 week,
Okay.
which I thought was, I was confused with the friendly amendments and didn't, yeah. And
It
if it's
won't
not
change-
possible, it's.
No, it won't change the outcome, and I think that we could certainly change the record for you to have a positive vote. Yeah. Any other questions from the council? Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember
Want to make
Sarah.
a statement. I really believe that we need to have a safety plan that everybody's buying into. And I'm going to make a suggestion to the ATU leadership and members, pack your lunch, get this done.
All right. Any other comments on this item? Because we've spent a lot of time on it, and it's important. Important issue we all care about. All right, thank you, and thank you all for your very thoughtful conversation and deliberation. And I also thank all those who have been very respectful in the audience listening. And clearly, we all really do care about this issue, care about you, and I really admire and appreciate the respect you had to kind of see us kind of think through, and we'll certainly have more work to do in the weeks and months ahead. We have a couple of other items under other business. I am expecting it not to be a long debate, but it is the chair's recommendation for the appointment of the Equity Advisory Committee co-chair. And this is really an important role that provides leadership to the committee. But really appreciate the work of Councilmember Francisco Gonzalez, who stepped down his position as a council member, so we really have an open slot, and I'm really very thrilled that Councilmember John Pacheco has agreed to the position of co-chair until such time as a new council is seated in March, which is soon, but nonetheless, I think Councilmember Pacheco has already come to meetings and is active in that role. So therefore, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the appointment of Councilmember John Pacheco Jr. to the Equity Advisory Committee co-chair seat.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any debate? There will be no testimony on this item. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome, John. Thank you. That motion's carried. Please, I have to use my gavel. Another final business item, 2023-47, is the appointments to the Transportation Advisory Board. The TAB Advisory Board was established by the Met Council pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 473.146. The TAB's purpose is to advise and assist the Council, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and all political subdivisions in accomplishing the responsibilities designated by state and federal law and regulation with regard to transportation planning and programming for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. The TAB is a 34-member body composed of elected officials, representatives of government agencies involved in transportation issues, citizen members, and members who represent public transit, the freight industry, and non-motorized transportation. The Metropolitan Council appoints 12 members, 8 citizen members, 2 members representing public transit, 1 member representing non-motorized transportation, and 1 member of the Metropolitan Council. In addition, the council is responsible for appointing the TAB chair from among the advisory membership. TAB members serve staggered 2-year terms. The 8 Transportation Advisory Board positions are up for reappointment due to term expirations, including the representatives from the council geographic districts E through H. Councilmember Deb Barber and Council Metropolitan Transportation Services Director Charles Carlson served on the nominating committee, which hosted interviews on January 27th and 31st of this year. 11 applications were reviewed for the 8 open appointments. Following the interviews, the committee reviewed the application materials, interview notes, and made appointment recommendations for my consideration. The chair's final recommendations are noted in the business item, and if appointed, District E through H appointees will complete terms ending in December 2024. TAB bylaws state the TAB may make a recommendation for the chair appointment. The chair, Hovland, has served the TAB since 2005, and he's served as chair since 2015. No opposition was expressed by TAB members, and no other interest was stated. So therefore, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the following appointments to the Transportation Advisory Board. Chair, James Hovland. District E, Chris Geisler. District F, Mark Jenkins. District G, Bill Lindeke. District H, Peter Dugan. F, alternate, Torrin Gustafson. G, alternate, Rich Holst. And H, alternate, Carl Drotning. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just briefly, 2 things. Thank you.
Councilmember Logan.
Really briefly. I just want to make sure and thank Councilmember Barber for her service on TAB, as someone who served on TAB for 12 years, and I know a lot of us served on that body as well. It's a lot of work, and you have represented us very well, so thanks for that. And then just to note that there's very little gender diversity in the people that we're appointing. I understand that there was very little gender diversity in the applicants. So as we look for either our modal reps or things, it may be an opportunity to recruit from some underrepresented communities. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments and for highlighting that diversity interest. Fine. Any other comments, thoughts? All righty, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those members and appointments are approved. We have some time for some reports. I will just say briefly, I really appreciate today's meeting, and I appreciate everybody's really thoughtful hearts and minds on this issue. We're not there yet. We know that, but we have a little call of duty and of our values to really follow through with what we have talked about tonight. So I really appreciate everybody kind of committing to do the work, and it is work ahead. With that, are there any other reports? Councilmember Lindstrom.
Well, I just wanted to say that this afternoon there was a really helpful and productive listening session at Metro HRA. Chair Lilligren was a part of that. I think Judy and Reva was there as well. And it was just very refreshing to get feedback from those housing developers that are part of the project-based voucher program. And it was just something, perhaps you have some things to add as well, but it was a good opportunity to hear feedback on one of the most critical things that we work on as a council.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add, this is about the voucher program through our HRA, and the only thing I would add, Councilmember Lindstrom, is just how stellar our staff was at this meeting, and especially Terry Smith, Ms. Smith. She could answer very, very technical questions right off the cuff on very complicated federal policy and practice. So there's like 60 people attended it. It was really well done.
Mr. Chair, I would just also add that the comments from our partners, the ones that are, working in the field that have to also try to figure out the voucher problem, or the developers that are out there, they gave high praise to Terry and her team in saying, this is a great group to work with. Terry's done a fantastic job, and it is excruciatingly hard to figure this out because I was reminded that I think 17,000 people applied last year to get on the list. Only 2,000 make the list. those 2,000 have to wait 3 to 5 years to maybe have a voucher come up. And at the same time, our staff, through the policies that we've enabled and moved forward, are working with Minneapolis now in a new program, demonstration program, and doing the work around the zip codes to make sure we can flex the amounts of voucher rent subsidies that they can get to help allow more opportunities to move where people want. It's extremely difficult, but these are one-of-a-kind ideas that are coming out of our Metro HRA, and I just want to thank staff. The need is great, it's growing greater, but if you have to have a team in place to figure it out, we've got it.
Thank you for that. Any other reports or comments?
Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ditto what everyone said about the Metro HRA presentation today. It met one of our goals, and that was to talk with all of our partners about the work that we're doing, and I hope that we continue to have similar meetings with everyone that has the same goal to improve and increase opportunities for affordable housing.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Regional Administrator.
Just a quick one, Mr. Chair. We have our general manager of Metro Transit being recruited right now. We'll have our first review screening of candidates on February 17th, but please use your networks and get it out there and help us with recruitment.
Ms. General Counsel.
No report.
No report. All right, with that, somebody said this would be the fastest meeting? I don't think so.
Never. They jinxed it.
They'll be for
They
6.
jinxed it, yeah.
That's it.
We're on time. All right, that's enough for tonight. We'll see you all very soon. This meeting is adjourned.